2020 has absolutely been a year of change and unprecedented change, and not only change, but the rate that change is happening has been nothing like we've seen before. Organisations and businesses that we deal with in, day out, have had a lot of new things they need to take into consideration. And then on top of it all, you've got the customers that have had to change their buying, the way they buy, very, very much. So organisations have needed to really adapt to the new way that customers are buying and provide new routes to market to allow that to happen.
Yeah, you mentioned change. Are there any examples you can give me of customers that may have had to, change quite drastically over the last year?
Most people, when they think of businesses needing to change, they automatically go to those organisations that have been negatively affected by COVID-19, but it's not restricted to them. Those organisations absolutely have, but also organisations that have been successful. We've had a lot of organisations, a lot of customers that have absolutely thrived and have had an influx in business that they've needed to manage. So with all this new business that's happened very, very quickly, they've needed to look at, are our systems robust enough? Are our processes robust enough? Can we deliver the products that our customers are now requesting from us? But to your point, there's definitely a lot of customers. One example that I've discussed recently was an organisation, it's a chocolatier business called Cocoa Black. Most of their revenues used to come in through stores and cafes, whereas obviously once the national restrictions came in place, their business stopped overnight. So they very, very quickly had to figure out how do we get our quality produce out to our customer base. So what they did, they very, very quickly moved all their resources and focus to online. And luckily they were using NetSuite to start with. So they had that real granular information as to what was working, what products were working, who was buying what products weren't selling too well. And so they were absolutely able to use that information for their e-commerce business to really focus on those areas that were really doing well and really take a little bit of the, energy out of those products that weren't doing too well. Now they're actually coming out of COVID better than when they started, with a really blossoming e-commerce business, but also their traditional cafe and store business coming through as well.
I know another of your customers is 99 Bikes, and it looks like they may have had a bit of a sales boom this year. How did you help them deal with that? Even
prior to COVID, they were a very, very fast-growing business. So they'd looked at having a system in place to help manage that growth early on. So lucky for them, when COVID hit, they were already using NetSuite. So when the business grew exponentially during COVID, both through bike sales as well as bike repair services that they provide. I think in the last 3 to 4 months, they've experienced 50% growth in their business. They're now looking at opening up another 15 stores over the next 12 months.
So Jason, how does NetSuite help a company scale up in size? In some cases, changes can happen overnight, such as I think one of your customers is Single O.
They're a coffee wholesaler. Although they've got a cafe that they sell their fantastic coffee to locally, most of the business traditionally has come through restaurants and cafes, independent restaurants and cafes that they deal with. Once again, similar to Cocoa Black, as soon as the restrictions came in, they very, very quickly realised that we need to do something. We know that not only our own business, but also our customers' businesses are really going to be impacted here. So what they did initially was they opened up what was called, or developed, the Stimulus brand, or Stimulus blend, of coffee. And they were able to do that within 48 hours, whereas pre-NetSuite, I think it was taking them upwards of 2 to 3 months to develop a new brand and actually push that brand out to the customers. On top of that, they did have an online presence, so they were able to then provide kickbacks and incentives for their customer base, the restaurants and cafes, to utilise and provide some, benefits around that as well to them. So they've continued to grow. They've continued to come up with some fantastic new products and initiatives that both help themselves, but also their supporting customer base. So it's been great, and I'm sure that they'll come out of this better than when they went in as well.
Businesses are starting to reopen around the country, including now in Victoria. Any advice to anyone that's looking to start a small business and take advantage of restrictions being relaxed and get a business going again?
I don't think it's ever too late. So I think what happens is there's been a real common denominator of those businesses that have been successful and been able to adapt to the changes that we've seen this year. And those are the businesses that have the right technology in place. The technology is absolutely key nowadays. No longer can you make decisions based on gut feel or experience, because 2020 has absolutely turned that on its head. You really need access to that real-time data, not just to make immediate change, but when you do make changes, you need to be able to understand very quickly if those changes have worked or not. On top of that, having a system that not only gives you the information to be able to make those decisions of change, but also is flexible enough to be able to act on those changes as well. So For those organisations that haven't done that as yet, it's very difficult to determine and have any impact on external changes that's happening, because there's change happening all the time. What we're restricted one day, we're not the next. But what they can look at is internally. Look at their business processes, make sure that they look at their internal systems to make sure that they're robust enough, as well as being flexible enough to help them deliver upon those changes moving forward.
Jason, thank you for joining us.
100%. Thanks very much, Ed.